Hi everyone. If you've been reading through the discussion posts this week already, you've seen that there was a question asking for a quick review over going from degrees to radians and radians to degrees. So this is what this video is serving for. It's going to be quick, just a recap of what we had talked about in class a while back. Maybe now I'm at a better place in presenting it as well and it will make more sense. So we had mentioned how 360 degrees is kind of an arbitrary number. It doesn't really have much purpose other than it has a whole lot of factors we can divide it by. So one way we can talk about a circle is we can say, well, a circle is 360 degrees. Or we can talk about a circle as being in terms of pi, which we say 2 pi, and this is radians. So we can define a circle as 360 degrees, or we can define a circle as 2 pi radians. So we can define 360 degrees as 2 pi radians. So as we go through this, what we want to find is a conversion factor if I'm given something in radians to turn it into degrees, and a conversion factor if I'm given some value in degrees to turn it into radians. So what we need to do to find that conversion factor is find what 1 radian is, and similarly find what 1 degree is. So the first thing we're going to do is go from radians to degrees. So if I wanted to go from radians to degrees, I need to know what 1 radian is equal to. Right now I know what 2 pi radians is equal to. So if I want to find 1 radian, if I want this right side to equal 1, well, anything divided by itself produces 1. So we're just going to divide this by a factor of 2 pi. 2 pi divided by 2 pi produces 1, so we have 1 radian. And then the left side we need to divide by 2 pi also. We're not going to get so caught up in the units here. Let's just worry about what that conversion factor is, because this is ultimately radians, but it will cancel with what we're converting and give us degrees in the end. So 360 divided by 2 pi, well, I can be selective in what I divide. I just want to divide by 2 and leave the pi. So we can say right here that this is 180 degrees over pi is equal to 1 radian. So if we have 2 radians, that would be 360 degrees over pi. If we have 3 radians, it would be 540 degrees divided by pi, I believe, and so on. Sorry, I had to pause the video for a moment and tend to baby Burfine there. So typically when you see radians, we're not going to see 1 radian, 2 radians, 3 radians, because if a circle 360 degrees is 2 pi radians, that's like about 6 radians. So typically we're going to see our radians in terms of pi instead of in terms of rational numbers. So let's consider a case. Let's say we have some number like pi thirds. Let's say we have pi thirds radians, and we want to turn this into degrees. So to do that, we just multiply by our conversion factor, which is 180 over pi. So I take 180 degrees over pi and multiply this by pi over 3, because that's our conversion factor. So the degrees are going to be left. This is actually radians. There's a radians in the denominator, so those will cancel or reduce. So what we can do here is we can multiply across. We can say 180 pi over 3 pi. And normally we don't show this step because when we're going from radians to degrees, that pi will almost always factor out if we're given something in terms of pi. So those reduce to 1. And what we're left with is 180 over 3, which reduces to 60. So we can say pi thirds radians is 60 degrees. So we multiply by that conversion factor. If we're setting it up this way with multiplying it, rather than using a proportion, we'll actually always multiply by this factor. So now say we want to go from degrees to radians, we want to go the other way, well, we can use our same definition. We know 360 degrees is equal to 2 pi radians. And this time we want to know what 1 degree is. So here we divide by 360, divide by 360. Again, the units aren't that big of an issue in this case. So we have 1 degree is equal to 2 pi over 360. Well, we can divide 2 by 360 and leave that factor of pi in the numerator. So 1 degree is equal to pi over 180. So what that tells us is 2 degrees would be 2 pi over 180. 3 degrees would be 3 pi over 180, and so on. So say we want to do a number that we already know what it is based on unit circle. Say we want to go 90 degrees into radians. Well, if 1 degree is pi over 180, we take 90 and multiply it by pi over 180. Now this is fraction multiplication. What we actually have going on is we have a numerator and a denominator in both of these. So if we really want to show what's going on, we'd have 90 pi over 1 times 180, which ends up being 180, and 90 divided by 180, if we leave that factor of pi in, because that's normally how we talk about radians, we normally have a pi in there somewhere, we'd have 1 pi over 2, so we wrote our 1 pi already, so pi over 2 is what 90 degrees is equivalent to. So it's all about just finding what that factor is, and after a few of these you'll probably have those factors memorized or committed to memory. I hope this video helped. Let me know what other questions you have. Enjoy your week so far. I hope your week is going well so far.